Stephen Squibbs presents this month's board certification tip.
And our next guest for our board certification tip seminar is the one and only, hailing from South Florida, Abby Cohen. Abby, are you there?
I am. Hello there.
Congratulations on this epic achievement that you have done. And we're so excited to hear how you approach the test and what tips you may have for our listeners. So can you tell us, like, you've been an attorney, a couple decades. You started family law like about 10, 11 years ago. When did you make the decision to go board cert?
So thank you for having me. And I think this is a great resource and service that you're providing to test takers. So thank you for doing that. I've been an attorney now for 30 years, practicing family law for 11. I had actually qualified to sit for the exam back in 2018. But due to personal and professional time obligations, I just didn't feel that I had the time that was necessary to appropriately study. So I didn't sit for the exam. I went to the tips and nibbles meeting at the board cert, and I had not yet started studying. And that was all it took for me to know that that was not the right choice. This past year, I changed firms and entered an environment that inspired and encouraged me to dig deeper and try harder and to achieve more. And I made the decision to take the leap.
And let's talk about that environment for a second, because you're on a pretty neat, unique environment with Peter and Jeffrey, Gladstone and Weissman, and now Denise and David, the big merger. So I know all of those folks are totally bought into board cert. So when you join the firm, how did they motivate you?
So when I joined the firm, the conversation had already started that continuing and growing and taking the test would be highly encouraged, but it wasn't mandated. But I will tell you for myself, when you join an environment where you are surrounded by great and talented attorneys, it makes you want to go to the next level and not just stay status quo. So it was the environment, it was the people, and the knowledge that I would be fully supported throughout this process. And one of the first tips I have for future test takers is to surround yourself by people who support you doing this. And whether it's members of your firm, your friends, your family, this is a really long and difficult process. There's going to be bad days. You're going to have meltdowns. You're going to question your competency. But having people around you to pull you back up is just so critical. And for me particularly, that person was Jeff. Every time I got inside my own head about whether I had the ability to take the test or I had the ability to be successful at this test, he talked me through it and got me back on track, and probably saved me a lot of time cycling through that on my own. So I think the environment and the people that are around you truly make a difference.
Yeah, I've always tried to hang out with people who are smarter than me, just so I,
Right.
take by osmosis.
They say you rise to the level around you. So I agree.
So cool environment. And I know you're a big advocate, start way before January for this test. When did you start in earnest getting yourself ready for board cert?
That's a fair question. And I think for me personally, because I was so far removed from school and studying in academics, I knew that I could not wait until January. So really back to the time when I was completing my application, so August and then into September, the first thing I did was reach out to other board certified attorneys that I know, whether within my firm or outside the firm, and ask them what their process was. When did they start? What did they study? How did they study? Then I enlarged that circle and I reached out to some newly board certified attorneys that I didn't know, because I knew they would have a different experience than someone who had taken it a decade before, particularly those who had taken it remotely. And I, digested all that information and I started to chart my course. So I knew there were a number of things that I wanted to get completed before the board cert review. And what I did was, for me, memorization is a really, handwriting is a memorization tool for me. So I prepared summaries of the last 2 years of the Florida Law Weeklies. I took the red books and I created my own outline from those. I started creating index cards of the pertinent statutes, of the family procedure rules, and just kept growing the body of documents that I would be then evolving to study after the cert review. So it was an ever evolving process. I didn't have myself on a set schedule until after cert review. And then following that, I had a study schedule that I followed.
So
for some of the subcore topics that weren't in any of the red books, I looked into our firm library to see if we had any CLEs or information. Also, as I got closer to the test, I reached out to some other practitioners, an accountant that I do work with, and had a few one-on-one mentoring sessions to work me through some of the subject matters that I felt I needed a little bit of a boost on.
You bring up something really important, the core and subcore topics. Now, that's published by the board cert committee, what's going to be on the exam. And not all of it is in the red books. Maybe the core subjects are, but some of the subcores don't always find their way into the red books. What did you have to go and hunt down outside of the red books for those? Like what areas did you need to independently figure out?
I tried to find some CLE materials on those topics, or to the extent that I knew an attorney who practiced in that area, tried to pick their brain a little bit. I did not feel that I put enough time into the subcore, and thank God I don't have to, but if I had to do it again, I think I would devote a little more time to that, because you just don't ever know where they're going to pop their head. It could be embedded in a core essay, or it could be standalone in a question. And another thing that I did, and I will tell you, historically, I was never a fan of mnemonics ever, but my brain just could not memorize the lengthy
13
factors.
alimony factors.
Well, alimony I could do. The time sharing, the relocation, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
So this is again where I kind of reached back into this community of attorneys who they were all so giving of their time and sharing information. And I received their mnemonics for a number of factors. And I would give myself mnemonic tests where I just literally wrote all the initials for all the mnemonics and as quickly as I could filled in the factors. So that was very helpful, knowing that, I would be able to kind of just data dump the factors and then go back in and fill in the substantive.
And I guess your test was all electronic now, remote with proctoring and people watching you. Wow, has that changed? 20 years ago, I went to Tampa and took the test in blue books and hand wrote it. And people were freaked out because they had the computer option, but it was new. And it took over your computer and locked it up, and people were real nervous. But what did you think of the actual test taking experience? Did it drive you crazy? Were you comfortable with it? How'd you approach it?
So I liked the idea of taking the test remotely and not having to travel and everything that's attendant with that. I made sure that my surroundings were test ready. I hardwired my computer into my modem. I locked pets up. I notified all my neighbors. I made sure my lawn person wasn't coming, because I was taking it from home. So I kind of, put all these guardrails in place. I thought it worked really well to have yourself in a comfortable environment. The test itself is so nerve-wracking because of the unknown. So I think, you take away a little bit of the unknown. What's the temperature in the room going to be? What snacks can I bring with me? And just having a little more comfort, I think, helped me.
Were you in
One
PJs and sweatpants, or how were you dressed for
I was dressed casually,
it?
but
Comfortable.
comfortably.
Yeah.
So, but it was just nice. It was nice to be in a comfortable environment. One test taking tip that I would give to anyone who's taking the exam remotely is, after you've downloaded the software, they give you the opportunity to go in and kind of play around with their features and their settings. And I found that to really be valuable and time saving. I practiced using the different timers, how to use the highlight tool, the bold, the bullet points. You don't have 30 seconds or a minute to spare in this test. So anything that you can do to familiarize yourself and you're just going in and typing, definitely take advantage of that.
And you told me you had a post-board cert review study process. What did that look like? I guess it was more regimented?
It was more regimented. I set aside, as soon as the cert review ended, every morning I got up early. I'm much better in the mornings, set aside a block of time. I would work the regular day. Then I had some time at the end of the day that was set aside for studying. The weekends entirely were dedicated to it. The last week before the exam, I marked myself out on the calendar, and other than answering emails, it was study, study, study. At that point, I took the outlines that I had created from the Red Book and then started moving them into index cards, because again, now I'm writing again. So it's just another memorization tool. Every time I wrote it, it just clicked a little more.
Right.
And just had things sorted by topic.
And we all have different ways of learning, and it's really interesting to see those in such like an extreme test like board cert. I've never taken anything like this test, just the volume of information you have to know, and seeing how everybody approaches it, whether it's writing, primacy versus recency. We all have these little ways to put this data in our head, and then the art is processing it and figuring out what's important. How many hours do you think you dedicated to this process, if you know?
It was more than 200. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like I was in a slightly different place because of my age and my removal from school, that I thought I needed a little bit more time.
When's the
And
last
I'm
time you
glad I
took?
took it.
When's the last time you took a test like this? The bar exam?
1993.
So I assume you only took the test once, if I can ask.
I did.
So that after you took it, did you have confidence, or did you think you failed it? What was going on in your head?
So that's a very interesting question. The moment I was finished, I thought, wow, that wasn't so bad. And then every day afterwards, I started rehashing it in my head, and oh my God, I should have said this and I should have done this. I spoke with some other people who had taken it. We saw different things in the essays. So you do ruminate, and there's such a long period of time that you're waiting for the results. It allows you to ruminate quite a bit. So as I moved further from the actual test day, I felt less and less confident.
And then May 31st came, right? And how'd you find out?
So this was a great story. I was actually sitting in Jeff's office when the email came through, and I was so happy that I was with him when I got the information, or the result, that he was there to share that moment with me. And it was such a sense of relief, because I was already kind of internally gearing myself up for, okay, I need to start doing this again. what's this process going to be? I think I would have approached it slightly differently. Again, certain subject matter, spending a little more time. But I wasn't looking forward to doing it a second time. So relief would be the first word that comes to mind.
And this test has like a bad reputation for such a low passage rate. Nine folks passed this year, and that's a pretty big number. Now that you've put the effort in and you've taken the test and you know the results, do you think it's fair?
I don't think it's unfair. I don't think it's insurmountable. I think it's difficult. I think it's just an enormous amount of information. And to me, the biggest issue is the time constraints. I legitimately was answering and finishing answers to my essays as my timer ran down. So I had to move really quickly through the multiple choice and short answer because I wanted to make sure I had as much time as I could on the essays. And I never had the chance to go back and kind of double check my answers.
Probably a blessing.
Maybe, but listen, the manner in which those questions are asked are very precise. And if you're going through it quickly, I'm sure that there were things that if I had read it slower or again, I may have picked up on the nuances. And nuance is a word that I heard so many times from other attorneys, that the test is on nuances and nuances. And I truly believe with the multiple choice and the short answer that is true. But to me, the greatest difficulty was the time constraints. I would love if the Florida bar issued full practice tests that people could take under time conditions, because I think the uncertainty and the nervousness of just the test itself, if people had a greater comfort in the test taking, that may provide a greater success. I remember when I was taking the bar exam, that was one of the things we always did, was take it under time conditions to make sure you could get through it. So I think a lot of the hype is the uncertainty and the not knowing. And I think that's why there's also a greater pass rate for people who've taken it another time, because they've now had that experience and they know what to expect.
Yeah, I only took it once too, and I was really grateful, but I was totally planning to take it a second time.
Right. No, but grateful
and,
is a good description, to only have to do it once. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think I was ever as smart as I was the year I took board cert. Just the amount of effort that takes.
I agree. I said, and I truly believe that even if I had not passed, that was a moment in time where I knew more information than I ever had in my entire career.
And I think it's important to know the test is not just about memorization, these nuances that you discuss. It's really knowing how it all works together and on a much higher level than just, memorizing factors. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any other tips you think our listeners may benefit from if they're thinking of taking this test?
Start early, take it seriously, give yourself a break if you need to take a day off or a weekend off, because if you've given yourself enough time, you have that ability to step back if you need to. Sometimes it's hard to sit for hours and hours and hours at a time and study. You kind of feel like a toddler with your attention span. So if you have that many months, just spread the tasks out over that time and you can do it. It's possible.
Well, Abby, we are so proud of you and thank you for your generous time today. And board cert helped me out in ways that I didn't understand at the time, but you'll see there's only 260 something board certified family law attorneys in Florida, and to be in that little club, I think demonstrates that you're you're taking your job very seriously. I mean, why not try to be the best at it? So everybody
And thank
should
you,
do it.
Eddie, for doing this, because I really believe that this information should be imparted to test takers early to allow them to have the choice and the knowledge to begin early if that's something they want to do. So thank you for what you do.
Of course. Well, we will get this segment out to the public, and for all those test takers out there, good luck. And
Yes,
Abby,
good luck.
thank you for your time.
All right, have a good one.
Brings us to the conclusion of this quarter's episode of Stevens & Stevens Family Law CLE. Remember, all proceeds from this project benefit the Center for Child Counseling. We truly appreciate your support. We will see you next quarter. Till then, do something that matters.